Okay. Welcome everyone to the Finance Committee for the Village of Gulf Manor. Today is March 28th, 2022. Can we start with a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Betcher, Mr. Knitt.
Here.
Ms. Norman.
Here.
Ms. Snyder.
Here.
Mr. Hoff.
Present.
All members are present except for Mr. Betcher.
Mr. Betcher had a family thing come up. Do we have a motion to excuse Mr. Betcher?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. If everyone has had a chance to review tonight's agenda, do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and it does not appear that anyone is registered to address the committee this evening. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then we're on to approving the minutes from February 28th. Has everyone had a chance to review those? Can I have a motion to?
Motion to accept.
Okay, do I have a second? I'll make a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and now we're on to new business with Mr. Lanzer with the February 2022 financial packet.
Yeah, there's actually going to be a second item here. Mr. Betcher at the last finance meeting requested that I share information about Star, Ohio. So I'll speak briefly about that as well. For the month of February, fiscal year 2022, the Village of Gulf Manor had an adjusted bank balance of $2,856,000. Of this amount, $2,759,000 can be found in the village's primary checking account, $10,269 in the village's mayor's court account, and the remaining balance resides in the two village law enforcement funds. I always like to note that due to village fund accounting, the majority of the resources actually found in the village's primary checking account have been accounted for in two road and street funds, which are dedicated funds, and those resources can only be spent for those purposes. As for outstanding payments, the village had 23 payments outstanding that totaled close to $26,000 for the month. The village had 79 payments clear the bank account, which totaled $264,602. And the top 5 payment payees for the month were payroll, Deer Park Silverton Fire, Ohio Police and Fire Pension, the Jefferson Health Plan, which is the employee health plan for village employees, and OPERS, which is village retirement. In regards to receipts, the village had 28 receipts clear the bank in the month of February, and those receipts totaled $225,581. General fund revenues for the month were $171,000, and this amount was nearly $55,000 more than what the village generated in February of last year. This included approximately $83,000 in general fund income tax receipts, and that number is $5,000 more than what the village generated in February of last year. For the year, the village has generated $153,000 in general fund income tax receipts. And this is nearly $40,000 more than what the village is able to generate through February of last year. So we are on track to meet our forecasted revenue for income taxes. As of February of 2022, though, we have not received any general receipts at all. These have come since in March, and Paul will talk about that here shortly. As for appropriations, total appropriations was $385,000. Includes $208,000 spent during February of this year. Both figures are higher. The spend has been greater than what the village spent through February of last year. And the largest single reason why is we've started making payments on that Deer Park Silver Fire contract. That is $48,000 each. With that said, the increase in appropriations relating to the new contract have been planned for and budgeted for in current appropriations. And you can tell this when you compare the percentage of appropriation spend through February of this year to February of last year, and the spend's nearly identical. It's 14.1% for this year and 13.9% last year. So village administration will continue to monitor village appropriations and make any necessary adjustments. I don't anticipate making anything significant. Revenues seem to be in line. We've received second half property taxes now, and those are at forecast. So I think we're in good shape barring any unforeseen issue like a roof needing to be replaced like last year. That is the end of my financial report, and I'm happy to answer any questions anyone on this committee might have about that.
Are there receipts from Little Miami for what they're supposed to be sending us for the settlement?
Yeah, we've received Little Miami. I don't think we received any in February. Those were received in March.
Oh, so
They owe us payment March 1st each year.
oh, it's a one-time payment.
Essentially, and then it's as they come in.
Got it. Okay.
But they're meeting their obligations
Okay.
to us there as well. I think to date we've received $129,000 from Little Miami, and that'll be on next month's report.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we're right there with that. It took a little bit of coordination. I had to meet with Jenny Kaminer, who's the village administrator for Fairfax, as well as the account clerk for Deer Park Silverton, to try and get coordinated. I urged Little Miami, Fairfax, who handles that for them, what our time considerations were with Deer Park Silverton. What was communicated to me by DPS is, we don't care when it comes, but you have a bill due the 5th of each month, and you have to meet that bill. So we're all coordinated there, and we've received payment.
Great.
Any other questions for Mr. Lancer?
All right, the second item I have, if that's okay, is Star Ohio. So like I mentioned at the start of the meeting, Mr. Betcher requested that I research and bring to the committee information concerning the State Treasury Asset Reserve Program known as Star Ohio. And I hope to spend a few minutes tonight giving an update on that. So what Star Ohio is an extremely highly rated public investment pool open to all government subdivisions. That includes counties, cities, school districts, townships, villages, public libraries, fire districts, parks and rec districts, and transportation boards. The state treasurer's office acts as an advisor and administrator of the program, and they manage the program's portfolio on a day-to-day basis. The program has maintained a Standard & Poor's rating, their highest rating of AAA-M, every year since its inception in 1995. And what the program is a money market mutual fund account. So it's extremely common. Most retirement programs are that. And they invest in U.S. Treasuries, U.S. government agency securities, eligible commercial paper, corporate bonds, repurchase agreements, money market funds, and collateralized deposits. The program has provided entities over $4 billion in interest since the program's inception. So we're talking, it's a proven winner. And currently there are over 2,500 participating jurisdictions within the program. The program itself gives members, if we choose to participate in it, 24-hour online access to its account information. And this is the real benefit of it. It does not charge for wire funds into or out of the account. There's no minimum investment amount to participate or a minimum period of investment. So we can put money in and we can get it out any business day with no fee or penalty to the Village of Gulf Manor. To end 2021, the program had held a net position of $17.6 billion. And this was an increase of $3.2 billion since the end of fiscal year 20, with an annualized rate of return of 8.3% in 2021. So the context of this is carrying a carryover balance And Mr. Betcher requested that we research Star Ohio to determine if it was feasible to put a portion of that carryover or reserve and invest it in Star Ohio. What I've been tasked with is researching the program. I think it's probably a smart idea, especially now as interest rates go up. The opportunity will keep generating bigger banker bunks happening now. It'll ultimately be on the committee and council to choose to go that route, and if they go that route, what portion of that carryover they would let us see, you all would let us see submitted to Star Ohio. But to my knowledge, there's 14 other similar programs throughout the United States, and this is the one for Ohio. There's no really any other option for us as a bill.
Okay, that was gonna be my question.
Well, with simple flat account or auditing and accounting requirements, they'll all be handled by the state of Ohio, as opposed to us.
Any competing type of account matter, but really not offer more of a yield.
I don't think so. I mean, potentially, the big thing is do we want to be managing that account ourselves? I prefer not to, with limited capacity here.
Well, and that return, 8% is astronomical,
It is
8.1.
right? Like you can't even get CDs that provide that kind of
No.
return.
Well, that's what,
And a CD locks it in.
well, CDs, it's going to change as the rates go up. The problem with CDs has been, rates have been so low, it didn't make sense.
Right.
If you were storing it in a CD or even a savings account,
Or even an MMA.
Right.
I mean, if rates were
if
just.
it wasn't going to
lower.
turn anything. But this is similar to any retirement account.
Right.
So what are the fees? Is that like
There are no
there is some?
So I just look at it real fast. If we just took, and just as a spit out example, $1 million and put it in there, by the end of the year, it's an $80,000 return on that 8%.
Potentially.
Compounding, right. Compounding
There's a lot
next
on that.
year,
Yeah.
100%. But let's pretend it continues to hold that 8%. And next year, and you all understand on compounding interest, that is stupid free money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's,
Is it compounded daily or monthly? or-
So it's something to think about, and I'm sure I'll be giving an update to Mr. Betcher when he's
Right.
available. And I think it's definitely worth investigating on a deeper level to do that. Because, the big problem, it's not a problem, but we are carrying a reserve in a bank account that's yielding nothing.
right,
Right.
yeah.
Was there
It's
a
actually
recommended,
costing us money. to pay Fifth Third fees.
Mm.
was there a recommended amount or
No,
percentage?
They don't get into that. Now, I'm happy to reach out to other communities that may participate in it and ask them. But Star Ohio won't make those
Mhm.
decisions.
Probably
Each
would make
community is
sense to have
different.
like comparable communities, right?
Right.
To have that kind of an idea.
Right.
It's not every other community is in the same bank balance situation as us, and, so.
And I think in that sense, the real benefit of this is there's no penalty for pulling it out. There's
Yeah.
no minimum time.
Right.
If we would find ourselves needing a new roof, for example, we can pull that money out at any point as long as it's business.
Well, it sounds like the liquidity of the account is so deep that even if we pull out everything we had, there would be no difficulty in that account to support our request.
$17 billion.
Right.
Mr. Van Harn?
If you're gonna reach out to other communities, I like to hear different strategies that they use too. Like, we might decide to put $500,000 in and use the interest every year. Or we might let it grow. I mean, what are some strategies that we might want to consider? I can think of 2 or 3, but there's probably a couple that I haven't thought of. So,
Right. Like it might make sense to, put that, interest earned into an economic development fund.
exactly. Yeah, that would be our strategy. That would be a strategy maybe someone else does, or this is exactly what I was thinking. So.
So that's the end of my report. And again, everyone should have my contact information, so feel free to reach out if a question comes to you.
Great, thank you. Start in?
On our last meeting, there was question about taxes, if we had received any, and they deposited into our account on Friday. So today I was able to put it into UAN. I have the report that came with it and the numbers. So We got $637,865.56. And that took into account the collection fee of $14,441. So that this is will happen twice during this year. So this is our first installment. So that's my report. And here's paperwork if any of you would like to be able to see the actual numbers of how it came in and all that. So.
Any questions?
Paul, what was the breakdown, general fund, police levy, and street levy?
I have general fund, 361,996. The police was 117,510. The street was 156,680. And they had a special, which was $1,677. And that included, one second. Weed and litter was part of it, and the other said lead service line.
Yeah, so we get reimbursed we have to track whenever we get brush or leaves picked up, we have to track the amounts. And the county will give us they tie a monetary figure to those amounts. And then they reimburse us essentially for part of that cost, which is what that is.
So when you pick up brush, you weigh it?
Ballpark it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we know when we go to dump,
Mhm.
they weigh the vehicles. So we know approximately what the weight is. We know approximately what the weight of the vehicle is, and anything in addition to that would be the materials.
Okay. Got it. Anything on the pending business with ARPA or?
No, we'll have that for this committee's review, actually for council's review, the next, not this meeting, but the next meeting, and then the finance after that. And the other thing on there was, what?
2023 tax budget preparation.
So we talked a little bit about that last time. The departments are now starting to look at what expenses will be in 2023. We're asking for a line item look at each of the expenses by month for each department. I don't know if we've given them a deadline as to when they have that turned into you at this point.
No, we have not. I'm waiting on the county to give us our estimates for property taxes for next year. Once we have that, the next step would be for me to assemble the revenue projections for next year. And at that point, we'll request estimates from each department.
If I may, a quick word on capital expense. One of the things that's attractive about the STAR program is the liquidity of the funds in case we do have an emergency. In a perfect world, we won't have an emergency because I think we've gotten through a lot of the bigger things that we were anticipating might happen. The last really large thing in the building that we're aware of is replacing the cooling tower on the air conditioning system. And that actually is a planned expense in this year's budget. And that is, I don't think we have that tracked yet when that's going to start.
No, we have not. There's been several other things going on, but we'll touch base with them. Guyler will be here next week to do a number of projects, so we'll touch base with them then.
So in theory, that is the last large thing that needed to be done to get the building back where it should be. There are unplanned expenses that we may have in rehabbing the fire department once we get in there and see some of the issues that hadn't been taken care of for several years. But we're in pretty good shape with the physical plan of the village at this point.
Are there any plans for parking lot ceiling or anything like that, like across the street, that strip?
Actually, the Weehee Road project is scheduled for this year. After talking to the contractor, I'll talk more about this in my report at the other meeting. We're probably looking at starting that project in late fall, mid to late fall. That will also include rehabbing the parking lot across the street and doing the parking lot around this building.
Are they going to stick with asphalt or are they?
It'll be asphalt, most likely. It's the the available and best option for affordability.
Yeah, I know it's the least expensive, but I was just curious about the long-term ramifications, because you have to kind of redo that. You have to
Actually,
sealing it every couple of years.
The engineer will tell us that asphalt's a better option because it's easier to make changes in the street when repairs need to be made.
Do you have anything buried over there that needs to be gotten to?
There's electric over there, yeah.
Underneath I'm talking about the strip across the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, electric comes down up underneath the road and so do all of our phone lines. Well, not anymore. They used to. I don't know if we're still touching those.
There's still power that's there.
Just curious.
Now, I'm unsure if we are still going to go into executive session here or.
Yeah, so Mr. Betcher had requested an executive session this evening to talk about a police funding program and the potential purchase of an additional vehicle for the police department that the executive committee had approved in concept at their last meeting. I think because that program may come up, it's probably best to go ahead and do an executive session for the purposes of compensation of an employee or public official. So what that means, since Mr. Donovan's here and I think Ms. Norman has not been here for an executive session, would you mind explaining what that means?
This is a topic by statute we're permitted to discuss confidentially in executive session. So we make a motion, we then call a roll call vote, we go to executive session. Anything that's discussed in executive session is confidential. It's not to be, we don't take minutes of it. It's not to be disclosed because by statute, it needs to remain confidential within this group.
Okay, with that being said, I have a motion to go into executive session for matters of personnel compensation
So moved.
And it's of a public official or a public employee.
of a public official or a public employee.
Got it.
So moved.
All right, roll call.
Mr. Knapp?
Here.
Ms. Norman?
Here.
Ms. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Brittenhoff?
Yes.
We are in regular executive session here momentarily.
Shut down our recording. So we are going into executive session. This will be the close of our meeting. We'll adjourn after that session. And we appreciate if you're out there listening in to us this evening.
Don't need